Ya la vi. Mis ojos en la mañana, la paloma radia al valle, que se encarga de organizar un desayunito musical. Y hay un pajarillo, una vieja vaga, una gorrión. Welcome, welcome. A cantar esta.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Hi.
How is everybody doing?
I'm so happy to be invited to this. I'm so excited.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Andrea.
I am.
Thank you for coming.
I am incredibly
Thank you, everybody,
excited.
Thank you for being here, everybody. And I want to mention it is Dallas Lyle's birthday today. Happy birthday, Dallas.
I just wanted to start with a little bit of music. Hello, everyone, wherever you are. I'm saying hello from San Francisco, California, and I'm super excited to have Andrea right here. You look amazing, Andrea.
Oh, thank you.
And oh my God, people keep coming in. That's a beautiful thing.
Andrea.
Hi, Juan Carlos. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Oh, I have so many friends here, so many loved ones. This is a beautiful thing.
That is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And remember again, guys, this is going to be recorded for future viewings. So also, you're always welcome to start putting your questions on the chat room. I'll try to do the best I can to keep monitoring. But also, of course, we will have time at the end of the conversation to really ask any questions that you want to ask to Andrea.
Hi, Andrea.
Take advantage of this. Yeah,
I'm
yes.
Maria.
Hello, everyone.
Maria, Esther, Sylvia,
Yeah.
Carol, Mark, Doug, Eduardo, Linda, Pamela, Shannon, Michelle, Dallas, Richard, Lieberman, Juan Carlos, Douglas, Lori. I'm just overcome with all the beautiful people here. Francine's coming on. Oh my goodness.
I'm trying.
Yes. We're just gonna give it a couple of more minutes as always to try to allow people to.
Hey, Andrea.
Nancy!
Yeah, cheer squad right here, Andrea. It's like, yeah.
Hi, Andrea.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Julie! Oh my gosh. Hi, everybody.
Hello,
Shannon, Carlos. Wow.
Oh,
This is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
and beautiful. I see a puppy.
Yes. Hi, that's me, Michelle. I'm still getting my stuff set up. So here we go. I think I'm ready to start. Hello, everyone.
Oh
Hi,
my God,
Michelle.
I just love the energy of all the people entering here. Oh my God, I think this is so reflective of you, Andrea. I think this is really what is happening right now, right here. Is a reflection of you.
Go this way.
So I'm gonna ask anyone to mute yourselves. In that way, we can have a little bit of privacy at this moment. And I'm gonna say hello from San Francisco before anything else. It's kind of a warm day. It has been a little bit crazy, and I've been really, really looking forward to talk to Andrea. And this
Kevin,
I
I can't hear anything.
Let me just mute this here. Okay, we're muting people and admitting people. Everybody's gonna be mute while we have the conversation. Just to let you know, guys. So I'll try to. It's not to be about being rude or something. It's just trying to control oh my God, I'm amazed of all the people that keep just putting on. So just give us a couple of minutes and we'll be ready to start really just having an amazing time right here. Once again, this happened almost by magic. We were just, Andrea and I just connecting, and somehow she just asked me something about the interviews and things, and I say, what about not interviewing you, just coming soon? And so this is where we are. And I already seeing comments, and again, don't worry, everyone. We are looking at you. If you have questions, just you can communicate through the chat. I just want to say welcome, Andrea, to this place that we're going to try to make it as safe and fun and informative as we can. We've been doing these interviews, conversations, not only on my personal page, but also as part of the HIV London Survivors International Network. We've been interviewing directors, scientists, people, but also what it has been very, very important for me, that people keep telling their stories. And the little bit that I've been seeing, and I've been doing my homework to learn about Andrea. So before anything else, we can do it with our hands like that or whatever, but let's give a huge welcome to Andrea. Yeah. So Andrea, we're gonna start precisely just with simple things. Why don't you just tell us just a little bit, if somebody will ask you just immediately, who is Andrea? And by the way, I've been trying, like my name, Jesus Guillen, and I get many Jesus Gillian. I don't want to really mess up her name. So I want to give Andrea de Lange to allow her to pronounce her name the way that it is. And just start with that simple question: who is, in a few words, who is Andrea?
Well, I am my new term for myself, and this has come about in I'm doing EMDR, which is a type of trauma therapy these days. And I don't know if I mentioned that with you, but my new term for myself is I am freakishly strong. And I say that with I'm owning it, and it feels really good because I'm somebody that has survived a lot of stuff long before HIV and cancer came along, and depression and drug use. I survived some crazy stuff as a baby, and that's one of the things that I'm dealing with now in my trauma therapy. When I was starting at about 8 months old, my mom would give me baths, and I had a homicidal rubber ducky that had a hit out on me. And every time my mom gave me a bath, it had water trapped inside that was contaminated, that leaked into the tub. So I would accidentally swallow the water and have to get hospitalized with dysentery. The first hospitalization I had, rubella with 106. I got better. I went home. This happened 6 times in a year. And I survived. And it was only until my mom said something in this house in Sacramento is messing my kid up. And she picked up the evil rubber ducky, and black water came out. So that's when she figured it out. And I cried a lot after that. She shoved a bottle in my mouth, and I was an obese baby. I have a picture side by side with Jackie Gleason. I looked a lot like Jackie Gleason. And and so yeah, I had and so with my trauma therapy, I've been working with this reoccurring dream I had as like a 4-year-old. And what I've been working out is the same thing that why I survived that crazy stuff as a baby is led to surviving cancer and HIV as a 38-year survivor. I'm freakishly strong.
Yeah.
And
Andrea, where did you grow up?
So I was born in Sacramento and lived there for 2 years until my parents wanted to leave. Something in that house was not good for me. And then we went to Redlands. My dad was an aerospace engineer that got transferred a lot. So he worked at a Lockheed plant in Redlands. We lived there 5 years until the plant closed down. We went back to Sacramento. He worked with Aerojet. And then we were there for a year and a half and then came to Los Angeles when I was in the middle of third grade. And my dad worked for Rocketdyne.
Yeah.
And so so I grew up in Los Angeles from the middle of third grade on up. And I got to say, that was culture shock. I went from very integrated schools in Sacramento and Redlands, highly integrated schools, to I wasn't in LA Unified. I was in Las Virgenes, which had no busing. So it was a lot of white, affluent kids, and a lot of them were very mean. And they were mean to me because I was a little, I would say, combination flower child nerd.
Yeah.
And I was a nice kid.
Yeah, but I guess, Michal, like you say, and you're right, every time that you are different in whatever space that you are growing up, you are somehow, people they don't want to share sometimes life with someone that, sparkle in whatever way that is different to the surroundings. It is very interesting, and I'm gonna put that question also for all of you that they are listening, also in our chat or for later on, about precisely how much do we remember when we were kids and what Andrea is mentioning, because I keep reminding myself also of, I am a good boy. I am a good boy. And that comes from that trauma that precisely comes from our childhood. Let's start just doing little steps through your journey. So what kind of upbringing you had with your parents? You mentioned a little bit of flower child, and maybe a little bit of a nerd or whatever, different things. But what kind of upbringing did you have?
I grew up in a very strong Zionist Jewish household. I'm Jewish. My parents are both from East Flatbush, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And we have more Brooklyn in the house, Carlos Ferreira. And my dad was first generation. His mother was a Ukrainian immigrant. And I have Eastern and some Central European ancestry, all 100% Ashkenazi. And so my Jewish identity and cultural identity and history was very paramount in my upbringing and pride in my history. And I started going to Hebrew school as soon as my family moved to Los Angeles. And we had been involved in tightly knit Jewish communities in Sacramento and Redlands as well. There were no temples in Redlands, so we used to go to San Bernardino to go to temple. And I used to go to an international Zionist youth group called Habonim growing up. They had summer camps in Idlewild, and it was set up like a kibbutz. So if you're not familiar with a kibbutz, it's like a commune where everybody works. It was not like a rich kids camp. It was actually, there were not many hired staff. We all kind of ran the camp as kids. There weren't many staff. And we learned Hebrew dances, songs. So that was my upbringing. We weren't very religious, though. Despite all of that, and me going to Hebrew school, um, there wasn't like we didn't keep kosher or anything like the most kind of traditional thing we did each week was we had Sabbath services, Shabbat Sabbath services on Friday, where and art was something for me personally that was always encouraged. I didn't get coloring books. My mom gave me blank pieces of paper and art supplies. She didn't want me to be confined by coloring books. And she was very much encouraged. Oh, Antonella's here. Very much encouraged um, the arts culture, music. We always had pianos, nature, learning about other cultures. Humor was a huge thing. And all these goodies were very helpful to me because once we moved to LA, and I had a lot of mean kids, and it was all about looks, and my looks were not the correct ones, apparently. Um, that a lot of these goodies and art and poetry and reading and nature were things that helped to sustain me, music, laughing. I was very unhappy growing up. I had a lot of depression growing up. And as it turns out, I had a chemical imbalance, which was addressed later. But I also was, aside from that, unhappy with a lot of mean kids. And I also am a highly empathetic person, extremely empathetic. So I had two severe depressions in high school where I had to stay home in both ninth grade and 11th grade because I couldn't stop crying. I just was very depressed. And a lot of it was relating to I was unhappy with a lot of the superficiality and materialism of the kids I went to school with. And I was unhappy with a lot of the stuff just in the world, things going on in the world, poverty, discrimination, fighting, wars, things like that. So I took things I was always very sensitive. And in my house, my dad was really my main ally. I was criticized for being too sensitive. And it was really only later on as an adult where I started to my self-esteem raised as I was older and learn that sensitivity is a beautiful thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the
Um,
way, everyone right here, Andrea is allowing me for what we've been talking to really hopefully to go to places that maybe some of you already know about her, but we're gonna try to go to many places that it will take us to that place where Andrea is here now. How is it that Andrea, for being precisely this very sensitive person and everything, and for the little bit that you've been telling me, it became a little bit of a wild person in some way. And that has to, because in some way, like I was such a good kid, you know, I end up exploring my life until my 40s. But you seem to precisely, there was a moment that you needed to explore certain things in your life. And you know, and we're talking about, like we mentioned just in the short conversation before, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. How is
yeah.
that Andrea got there?
Well, I grew up in the 60s. I was a child of the 60s. And so that I was very influenced by a lot of the music and lifestyles of the 60s. And my parents were liberal, very liberal, tolerant people. They, for example, did not want us kids to have any kind of resentment towards Germans for the Holocaust. So they went to Germany during their honeymoon and they went to Europe, but in Germany they bought a VW bug that they brought back,
Mm.
and they brought Hummels back, and I grew up with Hummels hanging in my room. And they didn't want their kids to have any kind of resentment towards a group, any specific group of people, which that is incredibly cool. That is and as things turns out, a lot of my best friends growing up were non-Jewish Germans, German ancestry. And I actually have German ancestry after doing my DNA. So that's a very good example of how open-minded and very cool that they would think that way. And the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, a lot of when I was in 12th grade, okay, so I was in the sinus program, as I mentioned, and the goal was to go live on a kibbutz the year after graduating high school. I earned the money, like it wasn't handed to me and I wasn't going to ask for it. I had an after school job in 12th grade in a hospital as a dietary hostess. So I was like schlepping the cart with all the trays and food trays around into, it was Medical Center of Tarzana at the time. It's now like Providence Tarzana Hospital. And that's where I met a dishwasher named Joe May, who became my boyfriend. And he, unbeknownst to me, he was a dealing and shooting speed.
Okay.
He got me involved in snorting it by saying I needed to lose weight, very manipulative, and I really didn't. But he knew what to say to a young, I was 17 at the time in LA. It was all about looks and weight and being skinny. I was never a naturally thin kind of person. So that's how, other than that, it was like I had smoked joints a few times with my older brother, and that was like the extent of it. But actually, when I lived on the kibbutz in Israel, I was supposed to be there for a whole year, and I got really I was working hard in the avocado orchards from like 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I didn't really stick with my group that I was there with, the Zionist group. I would hang out with the European volunteers at the pub. And I'd also have friends on the kibbutz that would invite me to go down to the bomb shelters and smoke Lebanese hash with them, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
Okay, I got
And
you.
it was like after 4 months, so the kibbutz people were not very happy about me kind of rejecting the program. And about 4 months later, we were at our communal lunch, and they started reading the names of people that were doing things that were not good to them, that they didn't like. And it was all the volunteers, and it was Andrea. I was like the one person from my program, and I knew who told on me. But I was upset at that point because I had spent my 12th grade working after school to earn the $1,800 to be an indentured servant, and I felt like I earned the right to party after I was slaving all day in the avocado orchards. And I was like, come on, guys. I want to go to your Hebrew classes. I did 6 years of hard time in Hebrew school. I said, nah, I'm out of here. So I went back to that boyfriend.
Okay.
And that's
So
when
in Los
things
Angeles.
escalated.
We're in Los Angeles at this point.
I went back to LA, got back together with that boyfriend, and that's when things really escalated to the point where I moved in with him after a series of crazy very strange and bad roommate situations. I ended up living with him, and I was snorting crank every day to the point where I needed to snort crank to actually calm down.
All right. Right. So everyone, what we've been trying to do, Andrea and myself, is also, I arrived in Los Angeles when I was 24 years old, and we're talking about 1984. And I've been mentioning to her that maybe she even went to, my first job that I got in Los Angeles was in Jack in the Box. So maybe, like I say, maybe she even went one day in our fantasy, in our brains, she went there and have it Jack in the Box in those days, right? So, but we're talking about a very difficult or wild or, with a lot of experiences in your life. And this is when not only you, but myself and many others, we started to hear about HIV in some way. What are your memories that you remember when you started to hear about what was going on? What did you think? What went into your mind?
So I didn't actually, I found out my status in 87. I remember hearing some things from my older brother who had lived in West Hollywood, and I would hear stuff from him and his or second wife about people in the neighborhood, people they knew that were really sick. And of course, I started becoming aware of this mysterious disease that was happening. Now, something interesting, the boyfriend, Joe, that I mentioned, he was a vet. He was 5 years older than me. He was a crew chief stationed in Stuttgart, Germany. And so he was a vet. And when he went into the VA hospital and was really sick, and it was mysterious what was going on with him. And he said to me, "This is so weird. They asked me if I was gay." Now that stood out. And that was maybe 1983. But there wasn't a lot of knowledge about that. But later on, it made sense. So I started hearing a lot about HIV really in the year and time that I found out my diagnosis, which was 1987. As a matter of fact, I was in college at that point in a psychology class where we were discussing it. And I sat there in class thinking about this awful, awful thing that is happening to other people and how sad it is, but it's other people. And then right after that, so to back up a little, I actually seroconverted in 84, but I found out in 87. In 1984, when I was still with that boyfriend, I had a conversion illness, which is, I think, like 60% of people that seroconvert have acute flu-like symptoms. I had chills, fever, rash, and swollen lymph nodes. My doctor thought I might have had cancer, and I had 3 lymph nodes biopsied. And there was no explanation. It was negative. They didn't know why. And then later on, a few years later, it was people were talking about Epstein-Barr virus, which I tested positive for. So right across the street from that doctor, who's actually a pediatrician, was an Epstein-Barr specialist. And on that first visit with this new doctor, an Armenian man, Dr. Tilkian, Sarko Tilkian, our great man, he said, you're going to rule out this possibility of HIV just as ruling out possibilities. Sure. And that's how I found out my status.
What did you feel? What do you remember about that moment when this doctor told you that? Because I imagine also about those days, because at least that's the memory of myself as well, of reading so many pages of people dying already. So what went into your mind? And I'm putting into all of you that are listening also the wonders of life, the wonder of what is somehow like we've been talking before, to keep going. What went into your mind, Andrea, when you knew this time this is what it is?
Well, I was so lucky to have this particular doctor tell me the news because he wasn't an HIV doctor. And I put that in quotes because a lot of doctors that had large gay clienteles all of a sudden became HIV specialists, whether they were immunology doctors or not. They all of a sudden they had the clients and that became the thing they specialized in. But my doctor was a family practice guy. And he was also, he wasn't American. He was from Armenia. He was Armenian from Armenia, I'm guessing. And he was very motivating. He said to me, "You are in great health. You can stay in great health. You don't ever have to get sick." And it was kind of an amazing thing. He didn't want me to go on AZT. AZT was taken off the shelf 1 month after my diagnosis. I was diagnosed day after St. Patrick's Day, 1987. And 1 month later, in March 87, the FDA took AZT off the shelf, which had been deemed too toxic for cancer patients. And they took it off, and then they took it off and they started giving it to people with HIV. I was very involved with Louise Hay Rides, and the Marianne Williamson Center for Living, and got very much connected with alternative holistic practitioners. And I also did research about AZT, and I was like, no, there's no way. Plus, I was healthy, and plus, my doctor told me I could stay healthy. And so I was very lucky. I know people, I've heard stories about people, and the standard thing that doctors would say in 1987 was that you have if you're not symptomatic, you have 2 years till you have an AIDS diagnosis, and from then you have 2 years till you're dead. So a lot of people listen to their doctors, the good patients, listened to their doctors and got sick and died. A lot of people freaked out and stressed themselves out. One of the things, besides having a great doctor that was in my favor, was I'm rebellious. I'm a rebellious person. And I knew I was in good health.
Andrea? What's your sign?
I'm a Leo.
Yeah.
I'm a Leo, so I'm freakishly strong.
So Yumika, then you didn't take medications until when?
The first time I took medications was, and I can't believe I did this. It was Combivir, a combo with actually had AZT in it. It was in 2000. So that was 13 years after my diagnosis. And at that time I was training to do an AIDS marathon, and my viral load was like 300,000. I was getting very tired and I wanted energy, and I just, my T cells had gone under 200. So I had the official AIDS diagnosis at that point by my T cell count. And so I went on these meds, and they just knocked me off my butt, and I felt awful. And I actually talked to an activist named River Houston, who I recently did a video about. She said she had a very similar idea of avoiding meds as long as possible. And she said, "Andrea, get off those things." And so 6 weeks later, I got off the meds. And what was very cool about, even though I felt like crap during those 6 weeks, my viral load came way down. So I had a lot of energy to continue training for the marathon and complete the marathon. And then from that point, I didn't go back on meds till 2008, 8 years later.
Yeah, I just want to put really fast again these that how different the journeys of so many of the people. Currently, Andrea and I, we had that similar journey that I didn't took medications for 15 years, but there were many people that some of them because they wanted to help the communities and find medications that can help others, but some of them in some trying to save themselves, because what you guys have to remember that, like Andrea said, really, we were living every day with the death sentence. Literally, we were told you might die tomorrow. Like in my case, I knew exactly the guy that I went to bed with and had sex with, and he died in 1986. And when you have things like that, it's really like you don't know what to do. So like Andrea, I didn't took medications for a long time, but remember also that many people did. And many people die from AZT, like she was mentioned, or from other medications because, you know, there were a few options for us to do. So Andrea, I want to know from you if, because many times we don't talk about these things. First, if you have had during all this time, because now we are in the year 2022, of course, and we're still here. We're still alive. And I want to know from you first also, you had some times that they were difficult for you either mentally, because we know, of course, that stigma and discrimination, and also woman, oh my God, I still hear sometimes so many absurd things against women when they had HIV, but also I want to hear in the other side, what do you think are your strengths, your power, what comes from inside you, what keep you going? So those two things, if you can, as long as you want to tell us.
Oh, Richard just mentioned in the chat about me being a cancer survivor as well. Yeah, I feel like maybe being a woman, so it's interesting. A lot of women in the HIV world do not put themselves first. A lot of women in general don't do that. We take care of people, a lot other people first a lot of times. And a lot of times put ourselves on the back burner. But because I chose a profession of working in the field early on after I was diagnosed, and then where I met my friend Eduardo Sacedo, who's here, one of my best. I was telling you, one of my best friends is from Mexico. That's Eduardo. We were involved in something called the Plus Seminar, Positive Living for Us, which is now run by Sunny Rose Berger. She's took over. And one of their themes was helping others helps ourselves. I knew I was always a helper person anyway, but I was an art major at CSUN, and I did counseling, went to the counseling center and did classes to figure out what I'm really good at. And I scored high as a counselor, and I had a career helping other people. I had a career helping people before college. I was an activity director for 4 years. But I decided I wanted to help others, and that really helped me as well. It rechanneled a lot of my own stuff. It rechanneled, like commit, dwelling on my own whatever and turning things around to trying to help other people, which made me happy. And that's kind of in my DNA, where I really enjoy helping others. So, and I'm kind of spacing at the rest of your question.
Right,
Can you repeat that?
I was just trying to grab from you some of the moments that had been very difficult, especially, I mean, maybe physically, especially you mentioned cancer, of course. Curiously, myself also had cancer. So that was one difficult moment, but we're also talking about mental health with the stigma and discrimination. Also trying to compare the hard moments and also try to grab from you your strengths.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I have a lot of close friends, and I think what I was going to say, thank you for reminding me, was that even though as women a lot of times we take care of other people, we have very close friendships with our female friends a lot of times, and close friendships not just with females. We're a lot of times we turn to our friends to help support us, and my friends always were a big support for me, and getting involved in support groups was something that helped me a great deal. And so having a good social support system is so connected in doing well with any kind of life-threatening disease. So that was in my favor. I also, because I worked in the social work field and mental health field, I was very much aware of a lot of resources and things that were available to me in the community. I also had talents and things that I was good at that I could use to feel better, like art, like poetry, like gardening, like enjoying music, or, that's not really a talent, but it's just something I always did. And so I have had dark times. I've had very dark times. In fact, I say how the Rolling Stones song 19th Nervous Breakdown has special meaning to me. But I get through it. I get through stuff. I don't I try to pull myself up and get past these things, and kind of look into my bag of tricks, just like Felix the cat. His bag reached into his bag of tricks. I've got my things that help me get through stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to say that since the moment that I met you, your energy just coming up from you is just it's really beautiful, and it has no words to define it sometimes. One of the things that we talk about is precisely going straight to the things. Are you clean and sober at this moment? Is it something that it really is very much part of your past? What would you say about that? Because I know, and we know, that many times, many of us that we keep going, sometimes we feel like that can be an escape, especially if it's still we go through stigma and discrimination. I was mentioning in one of the sessions before, for everyone that is listening, that if you go to any dating website, it still is the only question that they ask you about the health issue is, will you date an HIV positive person? So that lets you know it's still about that. But what would you say to all our communities that they are in AA or clean and sober, and in the other part, what is the role of creativity for you in your journey of survival and thriving in your case?
Well, for me, creativity has always been something that has been part of my makeup, and something that it's part of who I am. I mean, I remember writing poetry nonstop as a kid. I remember when we lived in Redlands and Sacramento the second time, just driving around and getting, we'd be driving in the mountains, and I'd want to write a poem about it. And my mom would sometimes take a paper bag and rip a page off paper off the bag and hand me a pen. And So poetry and art I got involved with very young. I grew up with a lot of culture. My parents are very much into theater and culture, and we'd go to the movies, and um, those were all things that helped me personally. I think everybody has, people have different things that they enjoy. For me, those were the things, but for anybody, people in the sober community, um, for anybody, they need whatever it is that is makes them happy and gets them, helps them relax and find peace. And what is their happy place? Is it playing with their dog, cat? Is it nature, going for walks, talking to a friend, putting on music, whatever it is?
Yeah.
And I feel like we all have it in us to do creative things. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't want to even try, or they'll say, I'm not an artist or a writer or that, whatever. But a lot of us are very concerned about being judged and
Of
perfectionist.
course.
We got it. Whatever it is that each person enjoys, let's do it. We deserve to be happy. We really do. We
Yeah.
deserve to enjoy this life, and it's precious, and we might as well be happy. And I also feel like it's cool to be proud of our accomplishments. It's that doesn't make us egotistical or bragging, or there's things that we do, then it's okay to be proud of our badass selves.
Two things, and time is passing
Thank you,
by.
William.
So start thinking, Andrea, about whatever, I mean, we're gonna try to keep this as long as we can, but start thinking about really what you consider is really important that you leave us a message. But I do want to read something that someone wrote in our, in the chat room, that said, that it's saying, forgive me, but addicts face discrimination in the AIDS community, and this is true. Every time that somebody said or have said, I have done drugs in my past, you immediately are tagged with something like you, therefore forever and ever, you're a monster or something like that. This discrimination, it does exist. But I also want to mention, because, oh my God, people with mental health issues, as soon as we immediately talk about mental health, we are exposing ourselves to the same thing. Women, oh please, we still need so much studies that include women. The ageism in our age community as well, now that, for example, in San Francisco, we are 70% of the population with HIV in the Bay Area are over 50 years old. We need to be conscious of ageism as well. So there is a lot of things. Thank you for the comments that you guys are putting on the chat room. And we're gonna try to start opening the conversation, because I think many people right here, they might have a lot of questions for you, Andrea. But before we do that, again, let's, what else would you like to add? And we can have an Andrea point 2.0 or something like that in the near future, because I feel that Andrea has a lot of things to share to our community as well. So what would you like to say before we open this forum to people that want to talk to you and share with you?
I feel really good about being surrounded by such beautiful, wonderful, wonderful people here today, including yourself, Jesus. But there's people here. I know some are newer friends, and I know a lot of you in different capacities, like Cantor Mark and Antonella through a new writing group. I know some of you in different ways, but I love you all. I think you're all amazing, and you inspire me, and you help me feel good. And I feel so supported and loved that you're here today. So I just hope you all know how wonderful you are. And it makes me very happy that you came today. It really does.
So let's keep the conversation going. So I'm gonna open the microphones, or if somebody wants to put the hand up, or in any way that you want, if any one of you have a question, but just the last comment that Sonny, hello Sonny, by the way, nice seeing you. She's telling you you're a beautiful child of the universe and you deserve to be happy. We all, I don't want to even come bring the Kleenex now, but we all deserve to be happy. I guess, you know, we've been told, I remember that article that came on the 80s and the 90s when it said that HIV/AIDS was happening to the worst of humanity. It literally, the article say that. It said that it was happening to the gays, to the drug addicts, and to the homeless, or something like that. And we were the worst of humanity. When you hear words like that, it's difficult sometimes not to feel like there's something wrong with you. Excuse me. I am a very optimistic person, and you know that. But sometimes when, even now with when monkeypox and MPX came out now, and we haven't even talked about these things, how the triggers and how immediately people started to look at these things. So anyway, I want to open again the microphones. Many of you know Andrea a little bit closer than myself. So if anyone has a question, wants to ask something, want to say something, I will just open the mics and let's just have a good just conversation about it. And I want to thank everyone for being here today. And you know, and I'm just incredibly thankful as always. Please also keep telling your stories. I never get tired of any story that I hear. So let's see, who do we put in the spot? Just because there's people that I don't know at all. What about Michelle Keller? Is there anything that you would like to add to the conversation to Andrea right here? I'm putting people on the spot. Hello, Michelle.
Yes, I can't say enough about Andrea and what she's, can you hear me okay? By the way, I have the AirPod. Okay, great. Of just the gift that Andrea has given to me. I feel like what happens in life, I mean, it's the roll of the dice. And I think a lot of people need to realize that just because they're untouched by something, that they're just lucky. And anything could happen to them as well. And I say that as somebody who, you know, AIDS hasn't affected, or HIV, it hasn't affected my life. But I understand that I'm very fortunate because I do have good friends, and thank goodness I haven't lost any, but it was scary in the 80s, worrying about friends and wondering what was going to happen. And seeing that Andrea has gone through that and many other things, and she's still here. Not only is she still standing, she's dancing. And that inspiration to me is just, it's priceless. And I'm very pleased to be here to support her, and I love her very much.
Oh,
Andrea, I mean, when someone else pick up a question, I was like, I keep having a, Sonny has a question. What about Sonny? It's a pleasure to have you here, Sonny, by the way. So,
Thank you.
sorry, I think if you don't mind, there you go. Are you?
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to say thank you for putting together this forum to highlight people's stories, and especially to my Andrea.
Yes.
I did have to step away for 1 second. And I didn't think it was long enough to have missed much, but I don't know that she shared that she almost single-handedly changed a law when she wanted to work and do her massage therapy. She worked with, I believe it was was it UCLA's Law Center?
Yeah, mention that.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
it was. Yeah, thank you
It's
so
huge.
much.
That paved the way for everyone and anyone who wanted to work and was living with HIV. And I think that that is a huge precedent and something I admire profusely. I mean, some of us work in the field and we can only do so much, but man, that was a pretty prestigious thing that you did selflessly. There you go.
Yeah, please do
Thank you so
say
much
that about-
for
Talk
bringing that up.
about that.
Thank you. So when I worked in the HIV field, I worked in my master's is in marriage, family, and child counseling, and I worked in the HIV field mainly with my ex-husband when I lived in Albuquerque. I worked at University of New Mexico Hospital case management, and then they went into an HMO system. And moved to New Mexico AIDS Services, and I had up to as high as 70. I think my highest caseload as a case manager was like 75 clients. And when my two favorite clients died a month apart, and this was after a divorce, my husband, I was in couples counseling and realized I was unhappy in my marriage, and he moved out. I set him up an apartment, paid first, last, and security, and then after a month, he came over to my house, stole the dog, and went back to LA. I had a nervous breakdown. That was one of my nervous breakdowns. And I left social work and decided to go into there was an amazing massage and natural therapeutics program near me, New Mexico School of Massage and Natural Therapeutics. And it was a 6-month, 750-hour program. Outstanding. There were people all over the US and even outside of the US in my program. And I moved back to LA after I graduated, moved back in 2000, and even became nationally certified as a massage therapist, which wasn't required. I went to the Van Nuys Court licensing to pick up a packet to get licensed,
Yeah.
and found that they were asking people to provide a doctor's letter that said they were negative for HIV and hepatitis C, which I knew was illegal. I had been working in the field. I was very much familiar with the Americans with Disabilities Act and knew that was blatantly illegal. And I got a lawyer through the HIV/AIDS Legal Services Alliance, and we filed a federal grievance. The LA Police Commission was funded by the Department of Health and Human Services, and this became a federal grievance that went on for a year. I tried very hard to get other massage therapists that had been discriminated against to join me. I wasn't looking to do it by myself. Sunny was actually really close friends with a coworker who I talked to. He was wanting to be a massage therapist, and when he couldn't get licensed after going to massage school, he started working with Sunny at Shanti. But he didn't want to join me. He didn't want to be public about that, about his HIV. So it was just me, and it took like a year to get it I'm reading what Joe says, one nervous breakdown. No, I had plenty. That was one of many. Um, so I just did it myself, and there was nothing, it wasn't a lawsuit involved me money or anything like that, but I changed the system. After a year, the grievance was concluded, and everything had to change, and they could no longer discriminate.
Yeah, I mean, we have to remind ourselves, and again, if anybody has any question or comment about it, um, but again, that stigma and discrimination sometimes even by our own, in the HIV long-term survivor group, not long ago, I still got this phone call from a lady, and sometimes again, they want to do them privately, because I got this phone call from this lady in Dallas, that she wasn't even out about her HIV, not even to her kids. And she was taking her medication, hiding, because she is a real estate agent. She works in society, but imagine the stress of this lady, that not even her kids know that she's HIV positive. I mean, come on, it has been 40 years of the first cases of HIV or more, and to still live with these things, come on, you know. Okay, Mr. Carlos Ferreira has a question. Let's see, can you unmute yourself?
I believe I am.
Okay, good.
Obrigado, senor.
You are sailing.
So, yes, I look like, what do you call those guys? Cruise, never mind. It's all background. Anyway, Andrea, I love your story about your family background and that the lessons that you learned from your parents. That one about, forgiveness. It's a remarkable thing. Not to blame an entire group of people. That's pretty remarkable. And I also can relate to the music being a source. I mean, for me, maybe for you too, is a source of salvation. Especially the Fab Four. Anyway. So my question to you is, I'm assuming this, when you learned that you were likely infected with HIV by your boyfriend at the time, okay, I got that right. So I imagine that you were faced with a wide range of emotions, including anger. So my question is, did you blame him? And the second question is, you stated that you were a highly sensitive person. So then my other question is, were you able to forgive him? And if so, how did that help you heal?
Great questions, Carlos. And I think, by the way, you were looking for like a Venetian gondolier. That's what I'm getting.
There you go. There
Okay.
you go.
Anyway, yeah. Well, actually, at the time that I got the diagnosis in 1987, that boyfriend had been out of my life for maybe 3 years at that point. And I had been living with a different boyfriend for a year, who was the son of a physical therapist I worked at the Jewish Home for the Aging, where I was an activity director. And I was in college and been living with this other guy for a year. And then I got infected. And then it dawned on, like, I was kind of in denial about how as a sex partner of somebody who was shooting drugs, that even though I wasn't shooting drugs, I was having unprotected sex with somebody who was. But just the denial thing, I didn't think about it. So I didn't have at that point that much anger towards him. I had a lot of anger towards, I would see at Cal State Northridge, I would see happy couples sitting together. And my boyfriend, who I was living with, immediately treated me like a leper, like a switch was flicked and I became a leper. And I started, and this was somebody who we were calling each other soulmates. I started having anger when I saw happy couples together
Wow.
and people that were happy. But I did have some resentment. And what I learned quickly was that, first of all, there's this kind of catch-22 situation that stress is one of the most immunosuppressive things that can happen to you. But when you are told you have this horrendous life-threatening illness, how do you not get stressed out? So talk about a catch-22. But I went to a bookstore and found a book about forgiveness because I didn't want to have resentment towards him, and I didn't want to have anything to add to make things that could make me sick or harm my immune system. And resentment is very harmful. Resentment and anger. I'm not saying that there's not some periods and stages we need to go through with things where we feel certain feelings, and I'm not trying to um, demonize any feelings, but for an extended period, I needed to move on. And I checked out this book about forgiveness, and it was very small. It was more like a pamphlet than a book. And what it kept repeating over and over again was that we need to forgive ourselves. A lot of the deal with not forgiving people is really we're not forgiving ourselves. So it was amazing to me. And like, I think a lot of, and also I learned, like, we teach people how to treat us. By staying in a relationship that was abusive in many ways, I taught the guy it was okay to treat me that way because I stayed in it. And just I'm all about taking responsibility and not giving my power away. When we blame and resent and everything, we're really giving our power away to heal and become and get past things. And so I also realized I needed to forgive myself for a lot of poor choices that I made. But really, my philosophy of life is that we do the best we can at any given time with the tools we have. So as somebody that did not have good self-esteem, I gravitated toward other people that not only didn't have good self-esteem, but didn't treat me the way I deserved to be treated. And I accepted it because I call it my jerk magnet, because I wasn't evolved to a place where I knew I needed better, and I didn't appreciate nice guys back then. So by the time my husband and I got reconnected at our 20-year high school reunion in 2001, I had done so much work on myself and I would not be with anybody that didn't treat me like I felt I deserved to be treated. So that's an excellent question, Carlos. I feel like that book about forgiveness really helped me, and not just towards that one guy, but maybe a lot of I had a lot of jerks in my life, and but I needed to forgive myself for poor choices I made, yeah, great question.
Yeah, I want to
Thank you so
mention.
much. That was a great answer. And I relate so much to what you talked about, low self-esteem and being a jerk magnet. And until I changed my narrative, then I started to attract kind people like you. And the whole thing about forgiveness and forgiving yourself, that's part of being a really badass.
Andrea, I think this is a great moment precisely to mention, because I had the pleasure, we cannot leave this conversation without mention your husband, I think, because I had the pleasure to meet him, and he seems like a social sweetheart. So I'm glad that you're there. Is there anything that you would like to add about that? Because Because this is you now, right?
Yes, and I encourage people because so much of as HIV positive people, we've integrate we've like been indoctrinated with so much negativity and bad messages about ourselves of whether we're unlovable and not worthy of this, that, or being happy, or even a lot of people are afraid to take chances in relationships. And so in getting together with my husband's HIV negative, um, I uh, my ex-husband was HIV negative too. I had been in relationships with HIV negative people, but he was a really nice guy, and um, we will be celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary in this December. We've been together 20 years. He had a jerk magnet with women, and he also didn't pick nice people that were that nice. And so we really appreciate each other and have a very loving, supportive relationship. We very much appreciate each other. Thank you, William. Um, and I feel like it's a lot of people are afraid to take chances in meeting people. And there are good people that will accept HIV, especially, and I do want to totally stress this, you equals you. If you're undetectable, you're untransmittable. If you're on your meds, and I think this knowledge is about 5 years old at this point, you cannot transmit HIV even if somebody paid you to infect somebody or whatever it is that you wanted to really bad. If you're undetectable, you can't do it. It just can't happen. So this really changes a lot of the narrative, and not that many people know this, but I can't infect him. And if people that are HIV that are on meds where their viral loads are undetectable, that's knowledge they can share with others. And I think it's also important what with my husband, I didn't tell him right away when we started dating. Why would I? I mean, a lot of people do. A lot of people feel like their HIV status is the equivalent of letting somebody know, oh, I happen to be an axe murderer. I thought I'd let you know. Um, and the thing is, and it's nothing like that. And the thing is, if somebody doesn't have anything invested in you and doesn't know how great you are, then they hear this news right away. Well, why would they be so excited to go on a second date? So I think it's important to get to know somebody and try to hold off on even something as simple as kissing. I learned through trial and error as a longtime single person dating, meeting guys, that I couldn't even take for granted of kissing somebody without them freaking out, because that happened. One guy freaked out when I kissed him after like 4 dates. Another guy on a first date, I gave him a shoulder massage and he freaked out. So Robert and I went on a lot of romantic dates, and he was so much of a gentleman. He didn't try to push anything, kiss anything. And then he calls me up after like we went out to dinner on the Hermosa Pier at sunset. He made dinner for me. We went rollerblading in the park. We slow danced to Led Zeppelin going to California. We did all kinds of lovely things. And he calls me up and he goes, I'm very confused. I'm getting mixed messages. I think you like me. First of all, are you straight? And I'm like, yes, yeah. He goes, okay, well, do you like? And I go, I like you so much. And I told him what was going on. And he was so sweet. He said, I can't imagine how hard it must have been for you to have to keep that in and not tell me. And he said, I don't know what, he goes, I want you in my life. I don't know what, at this point, I can't say I want a romantic relationship, but I want you in my life. So I'm thinking, okay, great, another friend, whatever. But there was a previous boyfriend who wanted to marry me, and guy that I got the HPV that led to my cancer, and he kept calling me. This guy I met at a hetero conference in San Diego, lived in in Sacramento. He was a Philly boy living in Sacramento, where I was born. Kept calling drunkenly because he was an alcoholic every so often. Andrea, I want you back. So on our first date, after I told the news to Robert on the phone, we got together to go bike riding, and we came back to the house, and this guy called me, and Robert, we were standing near the phone, and Dan is like, I want you back. I love you. I want you back. And Robert goes, you know, I'm okay with this. Let's do it.
Andrea, what else can I say? For everyone else, if nobody else has any other question, this is not the last time that you will see Andrea. I'm sure we will collaborate in one way or another. But if nobody else has a question, it's gonna be time to say thank you to everyone. Honestly, I am so incredibly thankful every time that we gather. And if anybody else is interested again in showcasing your story, we are here to listen. I am the person that let the people enter into the HIV Long-Term Survivors International Network. And I promise you, I'm never tired of hearing what so many people have to say or their stories. We have many things in common, but also there's always so many different adventures and journeys. Your last words, no, not the last words. What words you would like to say just to the community in general, Andrea? It has been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit more. What other words would you like just to leave in the air besides we keep going, right?
We keep going. I think you came up with that, and I love it, Jesus. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you, Jesus, for offering to interview me. Thank you, everybody here today that joined up. And there's only a couple people that like Douglas, I'd love to get to know you better. There's so many people here that are in my lives, and you make my life special, and you're part of what makes me very happy and healthy, and I feel so loved. I really appreciate it. I hope you all know how special you are. And don't let anybody dull your sparkle. God, don't do it. You're badass, all of us. And if you're sensitive, you're a member of the people that make this world a very beautiful place.
Oh,
I love you, everyone. For the ones that I just got to know you through, Andrea, thank you very, very much. I hope it's not the last time. Somebody, I think it was Carlos, was asking me, how can we get involved? There's always a way to get involved. You find me in any possible social media, but Andrea knows where to find us. We're gonna have the recording available for you guys to share. Share it with your friends or with whoever you think it might be worth it that they listen to what Andrea and all of you had shared today. So what can you do? Just send you a big, big hug from San Francisco. Come visit. I love you, everyone.
I love you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.